Hello, everybody. Hope you're all doing okay. It's Conor. We're back here with the debrief. We've not been back doing this last week, unfortunately. Just happens, unfortunately. You know, stuff gets in the way. Life gets in the way. So we're back here. We're back doing till the end of the season. Really, it'll be your full show when it comes to your Monday. We've got your Sunday bits as well with the hard line, which I'm sure if you've not caught from last night. I'd definitely tune in after this. If you guys have got nothing to do or you want to listen to something at work, some of you do shift work, I get told all the time. So we've got content literally flying out at this moment in time. So get involved in it. On top of that, we've got two sponsors come in and join in the channel. Everybody, I want you to get engaged with them as well. They're fantastic and quite close to my heart as well. Some good little bits that we're going to be getting intertwined with those two sponsors as well. So keep an eye out for that in the next coming days. Today, I was at Ellen Road filming with Jimmy. Wait for that as well. In the coming week as well. It's a shout out to IPM as well for sorting that for us. And yeah, guys, today we're going to be touching a little bit more on some of the sort of outlandish stuff we've been seeing today. We're going to be touching on some reflective bits as well when we're looking at Daniel Farke, Ilan Meslier, some of the bits in and around the spotlight pieces, which are around those two at this moment in time. We're going to be speaking a little bit about the game that happened again, but I don't want to focus on it too much. I kind of want to look ahead now. We've done the ranting, we've done the raving. Quite frankly, we're all still pissed off, aren't we? We're all still knocked off. Everyone I talk to, even in the content creation space, are still upset. Very, very upset. But what do we do in life? What do we do in football? We've kind of got to move forward. So we're going to be touching on it, but we're going to be delving into the future as well. Strategy, tactical imprints, personnel differences, what can we do? What can we do to get this squad back on centre stage where they should be? Just going to get into a few of your comments, everybody. Please make sure you're slapping a like on the video as well. Danny's in the building again. Gifted one Leeds fan channel membership. Danny, I see you in here all the time, mate. You have an absolute beauty, mate. Well done. I've had to face my colleagues today who've been ripping me. Yeah, man, I'm not surprised. Even Conor, lads, hi, mate. Can we have a poll for Farke in and Farke out? We will indeed, mate. Yeah, we'll have that a little bit later on. I don't think he drops Meslier. Yeah, we'll get into it. We'll get into it, guys. But keep your comments coming in. We'll star some as well. And we're going to get this man into the building as well. See what he has to say about it. It's Oscar Marriott. How are you doing, my friend?
I've been better, mate. I've been better. But in general life, I'm doing great. I'm doing good. Things are going well, mate. In terms of football, no, not so good. I can't lie. Not so good. I love to put a positive spin on things as much as I can. It's just the type of person I am in general. I do try and see the positive in things. But yeah, I'm struggling, mate. I am struggling. I've hit a bit of a wall at this moment in time because we have to say it as it is, and I'm sure we will do in today's video. We will say it as it is because there's no other real way of saying it unless you want to be delusional. But I don't want to be delusional. I will say it as it is today because it is not good enough in any sense of the word at this moment in time where we are.
Yeah, I agree, man. It's a tough one. It's good to get the chat temperature as well this evening. The chat has been extremely hot over the weekend, as I'm sure you can imagine, Oscar, and we have been really here on One Leeds because it was quite staggering, really, mate. What we saw roll into the building, evening match on together. Sid says, good evening, guys. Hope you're well. Lose the next two. Farke out for me. Get someone in for the remaining games and prepare for the playoffs. Evening, pretty boy. I'm thinking a Wembley trip. Oscar, nice to see a friendly face. Good evening, Conor and Oscar. God, mate, I said this the other day when we were streaming. I actually don't know where to start, to be honest with you. I'm going to leave it up to you. Do you want to start at the game?
I mean,
a little bit of a brief overview.
I'll start first and foremost.
Yeah.
I think, obviously, naturally, we will be talking a bit about tactics, I imagine, today, like in terms of what we're doing wrong now compared to what we were doing so brilliantly right sort of 4 or 5 weeks ago. But I don't really think anything tactically has changed too much. I just look at this team at this moment in time and think it needs a refresh. There's some players who seriously need a rest in this team, players who have bundles of energy in this Leeds team who just don't look like they can run at this moment in time. And it's not me having a go at them. I just think it's the nature of a grueling championship season that is the case. And yeah, there's certainly a couple of players that do look at that and think they need to rest or at least some kind of rotation. And I think when we've got 3 games coming up in 7 days, next week, I think we're going to have to do that. Otherwise, I think you'll see more points get dropped somewhere along those lines as well. And you could say worse than that, 2 or 3 results that we don't get in the next 3 quite easily. And yeah, obviously performances are one thing, tactics are one thing as well. But if you haven't got full fitness, full freshness in this Leeds team, it doesn't look good. Really doesn't look good. Got both fullbacks pushing up. You're quite reliant on pressing high up the pitch to win the ball back in those kind of areas and play quite energetic football when we're at our best. That can only work if the players are full of energy as well. And there's certain players look at and think, how Ramazani's not getting a start, I do not know. I think I've said that all season, but I think especially last couple of weeks, I don't know what he has to do to get a start. Will he not know even more so? I don't know what he has to do, whether it's on the right, whether it's in the 10, whether it's on the left, whether he's even as a false 9. Nonto has to be starting football matches for this football club. Ethan Ampadu didn't look anywhere near ready, if we're being totally honest, and that's to be expected. Who else have we got? The left back situation. Was it a Barham game? Could it have been a Schmidt game, that one? Swansea sat in. Schmidt's inventiveness could have helped. I'm not saying we would have won the game with Schmidt at left back, but it could have given us something a little bit different going forward. And there's just so many things to look at, mate, and think, it's not right. The team position does not look right at this moment in time. And tactically, it's still the same ideas. We still look to dominate possession. We still look to push both fullbacks up. As I've already kind of said, everything's still the same. I still like, in general, the way we play. I think it's a style of play that can win the league, not just finish top 2. But if you haven't got freshness, it's not going to work. It's like saying playing Sunday League and you go out drinking the night before. I'm not saying the players are doing that, but I'm saying it's the same kind of effects. If you keep doing that, you're not going to play well on a Sunday. And I'm not saying these players I don't know where I'm going with this analogy. You can't not at the optimum freshness. And football these days, you have to be in that kind of sense. And I just think the team, certainly 3 or 4 positions, we need to try something different, I think.
Yeah, shout out to Elan Mele, who's in here saying, I'm sorry, guys. Elan, it's not good enough, mate, unfortunately. Let's get into a few comments as well. Scott says, hi, Conor. I'm sorry. I'm resigned to the fact that we won't even get top 2. It's been over since Portsmouth. Even they changed the goalkeeper, the mentality of the players have proven this. I guess the thing is, Oscar, this isn't just a recency thing. It's been late goals, hasn't it, against Sunderland, late goals against Sheffield United. Don't get me wrong, brilliant adulation, pure joy. And I can tell you that from a Bramall Lane perspective as well when I was there. But in a sense, it not paper over the cracks as such, but there were definitely performances in there of which you're looking at it and you're thinking, this really isn't that free.
We haven't played well since Coventry for me in the early February. I honestly don't think we played well at Bramall Lane. Certainly for the first half an hour or 40 minutes, I thought we were terrible in that game, to be honest.
They should have been about 3 or 4-0 up, shouldn't they?
Dominated the first half an hour of that game. We have to be honest.
Yeah.
And we have kind of been, we've been on the hot streak. It was never going to continue the hot streak we were on. We were always going to find some kind of bump in the road. I always knew that. But the fact of the matter is, this has been an ongoing problem for a couple of weeks. In terms of, I don't want to dig out individual players, but the front 4 in general, has it played well in the last 7 or 8 games? Perot's had a decent spell from time to time, but unfortunately, Perot hasn't played well last 3 or 4 games. Maybe he's scored a few, but he hasn't played particularly well. The rest of the front 3 behind that haven't played well for 7 or 8 games. And I'm not exaggerating here. They have not played well. We're talking 5 out of 10 games here. Very few 6 or 7 out of 10s. Not 0 kind of 8 or 9 out of 10 performances from any of the front 3. And even Dan James. Dan James, I think, has been really, really strong this season for us. I think he just needs a rest. And I don't want to keep...
He's knackered.
It's clear.
But it's not just him. It's not just him. I look at Aronson. I'm not a massive fan of anyway. Just in terms of a player, he's just I don't mind Brendan, but if I'm to pick players even in this team where we've not got a natural cam, I don't put too much onus on Daniel Farke playing a cam anyway. I think there's too much over wording on that. Really, I don't think he emphasizes that too much. But what I will say is, you look at the danger men, which have been the danger men. You kind of look at Coventry and Watford in particular, when you look from a Solomon and a Dan James perspective, absolutely unbelievable. But let me just bring it back, and I want these to be fresh conversations as well. That's why I love getting Oscar on and different people as well. But you kind of look at we were having a bit of a chat today, Oscar, and you look at that Sheffield United side against Coventry. You've got Sidi Peck, you've got Hamza Chowdhury in the double pivot. Vinny Sousa's not even in the side. They've changed Callum O'Hare, who's been a little bit in and out this season. You look at Raksaki, he's been in and out when it comes to bouts of form. Ryan Brewster hasn't been a favourite there whatsoever, so he's been in and out, almost interchanging now in that number 10 with Callum O'Hare. The point being, this isn't. We've seen Sam McCallum come in at left back as an actual left back choice as well over Harrison Burrows in some games. The whole point is, it's not that Chris Wilder is an effective manager, but what I do think Chris Wilder is extremely good at, and he's shown this before, even in the 18-19 season, is he's good at rotating and he's good at getting the best out of his players in the final furlong. You know, he pipped Bielsa to it and us to it last time out, didn't he, with effective rotation. Right now, we are getting another consistent trend here where we're looking at Daniel Farke running these players absolutely into the ground. And we are actually now seeing the performance levels of said players, especially out wide. I mean, when I'm looking at it, Oscar, and I'm seeing Dan James not tracking back because of how leggy he looked, and then you're looking at Jayden Bogle just being completely exposed on that right-hand side every single time. We know that's not Bogle's strong point, just consistently defending 1v1. He needs help at points. That's a massive worry for me. And when you've got the rotation aspect of Ramazani and Nonto, and I'll just finish my piece here, Oscar, as well, a little monologue. I just think as well, when you've not rotated, I think the massive frustration I'm still feeling today, on whatever day it is, the 31st of March, and we get into a new week right now, but it still feels quite raw what's happening and happened. I think what's annoying me right now is, even when we see change, why has it taken this long when we've been screaming from the rooftops for a change in that front four in all of 2025? Why is it taking till the 31st of March? And it will be into April, you know, by the time that we play Luton, it'll be April 5th, won't it? Or 4th or 5th. Why is it taking that long for Daniel Farke, if he even does this, to make a change? I just think it's complete. I think it's negligence on his part, to be honest, to his players. I think, you know, he's got the quality, the personnel on the bench right now. And if he does put them in now, which I do think he'll make some changes, but it's almost like, well, now you go out and do it for me. I've not relied on you or trusted you all season, but now you go out and do it because my back's up against the wall. And I don't like that, but he's going to have to do it, and that'll make us all feel better.
It's if we make those changes. You know, I'm not even sure Ramazani will start at Luton. Maybe Nonto will start at Luton, whether it's on the right wing or in the 10. Personally, you know, you mentioned before about the number 10 situation. I think the best number 10 at this football club, and I think I've said it pretty much all season, is Willie Nonto. I really do believe that. I've said it all season. I think since our Sheffield Wednesday game, I've been hooked on, you know, Nonto playing in the 10.
We've said it on the we've said it on the debrief now for 5 months. We've not stopped on the debrief. Every single topic of every single time we've come back on here, we've spoken about Willie Nonto in the number 10. There's receipts online for it. And just elements of rotation with Ramazani and Solomon. Not now this narrative that Ramazani is just not good enough. And it, you know, a person with top 10 goals per 90 record in the Championship, it's just mental. And with the lack of rotation, anyway, mate, go on, you go.
He's exactly what we need at this moment in time, Ramazani. The pressing from the front, the runs in behind, just a little bit of pace. You know, if Dan James isn't fully fresh, there's not any pace in that front four at all. There's no pace at all. And I don't care how good, you know, some would rate some of these footballers in this front four. And listen, they're very good players. I'm not doubting that for 1 minute. But if you haven't got some kind of pace and power within that, it's very easy to defend against. And that's what we've kind of found, you know, in recent weeks. I think when you play the same front four and the same attack over and over again, teams aren't stupid. They work out ways to defend against it. You know, the threat Ramazani gives you is very different to the threat Solomon gives you. And if you do try and mix things up a little bit, it gives teams something else to think about. And we haven't done that. You know, this Leeds team is very patterned how we play our football. And so both fullbacks push up, the midfielders drop in, they try and get on the ball, etc., etc. Rodan and Strauch kind of defend the transitions along with the midfield. Front four kind of stays where it is. It's quite rigid. They don't really interchange positions very much. And it's quite a scripted and passing style of players, Scott Parker would put it. And I'm not criticising that as such, but it feels almost like Daniel Farke at this moment in time feels that if he does change anything, it's going to go away from the script almost. You know, in terms of Nonto coming in, oh no, he'll do things differently to Aronson. That has to automatically be worse. But I think sometimes you've got to just always add to things. You know, the best teams in the world don't stay the same way all season. They do change things around a little bit. You know, it's not something we seem to be willing to do. And it was similar last season. That is the biggest issue, is that we saw similar things last season at the exact same times in the season where Rutter and Somerville, you know, there was a lot of talk about they weren't great in the last bit of the season. They were knackers. Let's have it right. They were knackers. It was clear as day. They were not fully fresh at that moment in time. And it feels to me it's the same with Dan James. It's the same with Solomon. They are not fully at it at this moment in time. Your eyes don't lie to you. And that is a recurring theme, really.
Do you think he's almost trying to prove a point? Do you think Daniel Farke, because he's an astute manager?
I'd like to think not. I'd like to think, with how high the stakes are and how big it is for Daniel Farke's job alone to get out of the league this season, you'd like to think that we're not playing games in that sense. But what
do you think it is then? Because my opinion on Daniel Farke is, he's been around the block. He's been at Dortmund too. He's been at Borussia Mönchengladbach. He's been at Norwich. He's done well at Norwich. He's probably the best ember of his career. He's now got a job at one of the biggest clubs in the country. He's a smart man. I don't understand.
I just think
where this is because how can everybody see it? How can everybody see it in the summer? How can everybody see it after Sunderland? How can everybody talk about it after Preston, Hull, Swansea? Why is the line not being drawn here? Why is there a continuous backing of this guy? What is it?
I just think he looks at the team and thinks that 11 is my 11. That is the 11 that understands the way I want to play the most. I'm not saying I agree with this. I just think this seems to be how Daniel Farke manages. And he's not the only manager, by the way, who does this. Marcelo Bielsa, goodness me, that 2018-2019 season when we were up against Sheffield United for promotion, how many times were we kind of complaining about the starting 11 towards the back end of that season? Jack Harrison, Alioski, left-hand side. He just kept persisting with it. He's not the only manager to do this, Daniel Farke. That doesn't make it any less frustrating, by the way, and it doesn't make it any more right. But
Oscar, just to add to that context as well, Marcelo Bielsa didn't have the lavish replacement.
Yeah, of course. There is no point having a squad we've got with options in pretty much every position, 2 options, maybe 3 options in some positions.
Yeah.
If you're not going to use them, there's no point having those options. They might as well be out on loan or something. We're not going to use them. I'm not saying do that, but what is the point of having this massive squad if we're not going to use it and not rotate? We should have an advantage on Sheffield United and Burnley at this stage of the season. We should have an advantage on these teams now. If Marcus Edwards, isn't fully fresh, Burnley can't rotate out Marcus Edwards. If Solomon's not fully fresh for us, we can put Ramazani there. We can put Nonto there. We've got other options. We should have the luxury at this stage of the season. We should look at 3-game weeks and think, we've got a big advantage on these other teams now because we can play Ramazani at Luton, we can play Solomon at Middlesbrough, you can play Nonto at home to Preston, you can do all these different bits and pieces, you can change the fullbacks, both fullbacks you can change the whole midfield. We've got 4 options in midfield. You can change the centre forward if needs be. You have different options there, and it's just so frustrating that we're not using the squads with so many. These are good players, by the way. I'm not having it for 1 minute that Ramazani is not a top-class player. Ramazani is, for me, might be a hot take, this one. I think he's too good for the Championship. I really do believe that. Whether he's showing that for Leeds over the season, I'm not sure. But in terms of his pure skill level, his talent, and everything he brings to it on the football pitch, I think is of Premier League standard. I really do believe that. And I do believe, had he been starting and getting the minutes that a Solomon's got or a Dan James has got, I think Ramazani, looking at 15, 16, maybe 17, maybe even 20 goals from Ramazani this season. I really do genuinely believe that.
Yeah, I wanted as well to just touch on, I don't know if you've seen this, but this is, and we'll get into a few of your guys' comments in a little bit, and this is a Athletic article. Ilan Mele's errors, what experts think and why Leeds United manager Daniel Farke is backing him. And if you haven't read this was an article done just after the Hull game. And obviously we see here Sam Allardyce is the only one to have replaced the Frenchman fully. But if you actually just go through this and talk about it, he spoke here. If he left the club 2 summers ago, I'm sure he would be in the Premier League and another team. So what Abad said, this is the situation with the pressure of Leeds now means every single detail is not perfect to be pointed out. My advice was maybe he had to leave, but he wanted to stay and get promoted. Again, Lonergan said that he's a Premier League goalkeeper. And Farke obviously has stuck by him, and he said how self-critical he is. And this is just a bit of what he said as well. And this was after Hull. So I'm just going to read this bit out. When they said he's the Iceman, for me, he's more than the Iceman. When he was only 19 years old, he played against Arsenal at the Emirates in the FA Cup. The way he played, blah, blah, blah. This shows that he's developed strong mentality, but he knows what he's had to do in each moment according to what he prepared. He likes reviewing everything. He never showed the next day that he's affected too much by what's happening. This is my feeling, blah, blah, blah. this is how you build your strong mentality. You can be frustrated. It was hard work. What we did, because he came, the challenge was bigger, whatever. But it's interesting actually, because Gabe sent me a snippet of it as well. I think he sent me the same snippet of it, and it was actually on. And I'm just gonna put this up as well at Oscar, but it's actually on. If we have just a quick look at this that I've just got up in a second. So this is what he was saying when Parag, and this is apparently what happened in January, basically. He was stewing on Leeds United's last gasp draw with Swansea City, processing what those two drops might mean. Murat may have been wondering if there was anything he could have done up to this point to see if Leeds, in a stronger position with 7 matches to play, his, Daniel Farke's, and most of the fan base's mind will surely go back to January. It was January 4th when Leeds returned home from Hull City, where Illan Meslier had a major hand in all 3 concessions of a 3-3 draw. Farke faced more questions than ever in the following week about his goalkeeper's position in the team. The manager stood by him in the strongest possible terms, privately as well as publicly. Inevitably, especially during a transfer window, conversations were had between Farke and Murat about Meslier. How serious a problem is this? Will this be the difference between promotion and failure? Can we help you by getting a new stopper in the transfer market? These conversations may have been where Murat's mind wandered as he stared out onto the pitch on Saturday. And I thought that was quite a poignant little bit there, Oscar, to be honest with you. Interesting in itself. Are you back to the full screen here? Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, all good, mate. All good.
Interesting in itself, because people are going to naturally look at that and they're going to be like, oh, well, it's been plotted. It's been plotted, and Farke's not actually done that. And we will see the somersaults happen with that, because it's, we just have to blame the board, and Farke isn't culpable for many things, really, according to some fans. But there was one of the only Leeds bros was down there at the weekend, and he was actually close to him, and he said, I think Parag was visibly very, very upset at the end of the game, head in hand sort of thing. And I guess it pulls you back, doesn't it? But I guess it's vindicated by just consistent backing. You even look at the weekend, Oscar, where in the post-match press conference, he effectively called out Tanaka for that knuckleball back pass, which Tanaka got wrong. He didn't say anything about Meslier. Didn't say anything about him. Basically said that he's not going to talk about it. He's not going to delve into it. And it was very similar after Hull City as well. It's bizarre. It's absolutely bizarre. And unfortunately, this is what makes me think it maybe comes back to something a little bit different, where he just has full belief in him. And it's slightly worrying, in my opinion.
It's a dangerous game, obviously, in terms of it. For me, it's man management, I think, at this moment in time. I think, obviously, I mean, we've seen with various different managers that they do treat players in different ways. And I think Alex Ferguson was probably the prime example, really, in terms of some players got the hair dry treatment, some players got the hand around the shoulder, arm around the shoulder. Other players just got the, hardly any words spoken to them at all. And it worked differently for different players. But I think it's a dangerous game playing it in this kind of way. I think it is publicly, especially. I think privately, less so, where it's not in terms of in front of the public, essentially, in terms of, because for all we know, Daniel Farke could be saying totally different things to Illan Meslier in private and be full of praise for Tanaka in private, and it could be different things happening outside of the public domain. But what I would say with that is, it's a very dangerous game, because if you're, say, for example, Largi Ramazani or Wilfred Nonto or Joe Rothwell, even when he came out of the team, you'll be thinking to yourself, naturally, this is the human instinct as well. If obviously Meslier is getting all the backing, etc., in terms of for making mistakes and not performing well enough, then where's the love for Ramazani? Where's the love for Nonto? Where's the love for Rothwell in public? In that kind of sense. And maybe these players respond to criticism in different ways to how Illan Meslier respond. I think obviously it's not just those players. I think Joe Rodon at times, Daniel Farke actually has publicly been fairly critical of from time to time. Obviously, he massively rates Joe Rodon. I'm not questioning that for 1 minute. But I don't think it's in a malicious way what Daniel Farke does this. I just think he believes it's what will get the best out of each individual player. But I do think it's a dangerous game to play when you're doing it with players, when you're backing players who are playing and not performing well enough, and then not really massively backing the players who aren't on the pitch, because they'll start thinking, hang on a minute, I'm not playing, I'm not getting backed in public. This isn't a great situation. And it just feels to me it's a very dangerous game to play. And I think it was a game we played last season and it backfired, really. It did backfire, with certain players just didn't perform. When they got the chances to play, because they hadn't had any momentum of minutes. That's a key thing as well. In terms of if we do throw Ramazani in now, it's by no means guaranteed you'll be straight on the pace at Luton away, straight at it, because he's hardly played any football. He's effectively.
I keep saying that as well. I think you're right on the money, and I keep saying this. That the most amount of minutes he's had, mate, in a game, Ramazani, post injury, is 24 minutes against Preston in a cameo.
It's hard. What can you really do with these? It's like a momentum.
This is what I mean. It's like when he's on the bench, he's not coming in, which he did for 2 successive games recently. Then he came on for 1 minute. Then he came on for 6 minutes. Then he comes on at the weekend, and then you're getting people saying he's crap. He didn't do anything at the weekend, and I'm like, guys, there's absolutely no way. You cannot pigeonhole him into that Gelhardt mold. He's not a Gelhardt sort of player where it's almost we're looking at him as this super sub, and you come on and you have barely any minutes and you try do it all and you try win as the game, and that's how you prove yourself. That's not a meritocracy. That's absolute rubbish. It's a lack of rotation, and it's not giving a player, by the way, who scored at the Bernabeu last season and was touted the year before by several German clubs, several Italian clubs. He's coming to Leeds United. He was the Somerville replacement, and I get Daniel Farke loves Manor Solomon. That was his signing, and for me, it's evident that one was a club signing, one was a Farke signing. I cannot understand the lack of rotation. Does he not trust him? But I mean, he trusted him for that period, and he did quite well. So why don't we see a few more minutes in his legs, and maybe he can make the difference? Because what is the point now, Oscar? What is the point in letting all of this go and go and be there for nothing? How can you get to this stage where you've been top of the league for more game weeks than any other team, which, by the way, we weren't last year, top of the league more than any other team game week wise, and then you let it go right at the end with a really good set of fixtures because your nucleus is knackered and you're not rotating. And I just thought the favoritism, in a sense, I kind of get why he did it because it's his captain, but with the players that you've still got available, and we know it's bizarre because it's like we know he loves Gruev, and it's like Ampadu, almost him and Gruev are similar. I think Ampadu's a more well-rounded player, but him and Gruev are similar. I was really surprised for Gruev not starting that game, and he's not a personal choice of mine. But Tanaka being knackered, fatigued, Ampadu 50% fitness. It looked like he couldn't move around the pitch. For me, in that game, you kind of go with just 100% fit players. Rothwell's been at home for 2 weeks. Gruev's been. I think he's been at home for 2 weeks as well. You have to correct me. I can't remember if he went on international duty, but there's been no. He won't have gone as far as Tanaka or Junior Firpo or whatever. It just seemed like that was the obvious change, and he has to try and shoehorn Ampadu into the side. It was just bizarre. And I said beforehand, if Nonso and Ampadu are not fit, wrap them in cotton wool and let's start them against Luton. Surely.
I agree. I just think. I don't know. I just don't understand. It's the idea of Solomon or Ramazani as well. You can play both at the same time. Ramazani,
I know,
there is this idea we can play both at the same time. There's no reason why that can't happen either. It doesn't have to be a choice. In most positions as well, in terms of Perot and Joseph, that kind of discourse all season, that was kind of made a thing for no reason. They can play together. They're better when they play together as well. I still believe that. But why can't Ramazani go up top? Why? There's no reason why Ramazani could not play up front to finish a game off. If you're chasing a game, why that can't be done, or why we can't try different things.
And I think there's
no reason why that can't be done.
There's also, when he came on as well, there's game state, isn't it? We hate talking about this, but it's game state. If Leeds are defending a lead and Ramazani comes on and he's asked to almost occupy part really of a back 9, a back 10, it's not Ramazani's game.
No.
You've got to bring him on at a point in the game where Leeds United are maybe chasing something. We need a goal. We need a little bit of magic. We need a little bit of speed, dynamism. I understand he wasn't great when he came on, but I think there's definitely context to be applied there. And I think once again, game state, is he being brought on in the right game state every single game when he appears? This is why I do genuinely believe there is a little bit of mismanagement there. I mean, looking at solutions, do you think, because we're not out of it yet. We're second in the division. I have to say, Oscar, this is the most down I've been. It is.
Yeah,
it's the most
I'm the same. I genuinely think this is the first time all season where I've looked at it and thought, I'm not saying over the season we've not been as good as Burnley, Sheffield United, but certainly the last couple of weeks, if you look at the general momentum, where these teams are now, let's forget about December and November, all the underlying numbers from then. Where we are now, we are third. We are third out of the three. There is no question about it. Burnley, to be fair to them, have defended superbly all season, and they've added a magician in the final third in Marcus Edwards. There's no question about that at all. He's raised his game with Jade Anthony. He's raised the game of Zian Fleming, who's in great form as well. Josh Brown also in good form. It's a front four that really works well together all of a sudden. All of a sudden Burnley look quite a good team going forward. I'm not saying they're a great team going forward or better than us in that kind of sense, but they've got a better balance than us at this moment in time. Sheffield United, Campbell is really starting to step up as well. I'm a big fan of his, by the way. I think I can't believe it didn't work out for him at Stoke. I don't know what Stoke were thinking, how to let a player of that quality go. Obviously, you mentioned about Chowdhury and City Peck doing a good job in midfield. Obviously they've got their main midfielders to come back as well in the sense of Vinicius Souza. Arblaster as well, of course. So they're not even playing with the favoured midfield too. And everyone talks about like Michael Cooper saves them week in, week out, and then Michael Cooper FC and things like that. But Michael Cooper as well does make a lot of mistakes. And listen, he's a top goalkeeper. I'm not questioning that for 1 minute. But I think people have been sleeping on Sheffield United a little bit this season, where they are a good team. They're not just relying on Michael Cooper to save them every single week. Yes, there are some weeks where they do need Michael Cooper big time, but they are a good team as well. And we've got to expect that they were always going to get better at some point. When they made signings, it was always going to be better in an attacking sense. It was the same with Burnley as well. And we are behind these teams at this moment in time. I'm not saying over the season, do we deserve to be in the top two? Absolutely 100%. We've been better than these teams over the season. But in the right here and now, which is what matters, this is what matters now. It doesn't matter if we were the best team in August. It matters how good a team we are in March. And at this moment in time, we are clear. For me, it's not even debatable. We are clear third out of the three at this moment in time. I'm not saying it's going to finish like that. I'm not saying we can't improve ourselves. Of course we can. But we're not going to improve if we keep doing the same thing week in, week out and keep tiring out the players who are already knackered. And we keep doing it. It's like a vicious cycle. It's just going to keep going on and on.
You've mentioned it being a problem. I mean, I think he's made a rod for his own back here. He has to change it now. But I'm with you, and this is what I said. Yes, I said at the weekend, and it's an honest solution, chat. I think at the weekend, the criticism now for Daniel Farke is going to be incredible. If he starts Ilan Melli, just imagine, because we all expect Ilan to start again. If he starts him, and I don't want to isolate it just purely on him, because I think there's a few others in the squad who need rotating as well, but he is the spotlight. If he starts him again and he makes another mistake that leads to a goal, which let's be honest, mate, it's not out the realms of possibility. In fact, it's probably a 30-40% likelihood, especially when, look, let's not go on if buts and this, that, and the other. What's quite simply going to happen? I mean, even the Sheffield United game, mate. Do you remember when Gruff cleared it off the line when he fumbled about 2 or 3? I was at that ground. I was at Bramall Lane. He fumbled 2 or 3 and we got away with it. Now, you can see why they get him to punch it, Oscar. You can see why they get him to punch it.
No question about it.
You've not got a player within 5 meters of you and you drop it when the ball comes in under no pressure. Now, we don't need to get into, the specifics of it, of him being a goalkeeper, because I think we all know where we're at with that one. But what I will say in particular is if he starts him again, now I think it's a horrendous message to the fan base. It's a horrendous message to the squad. At least with Carl Darlow, you've got maybe a little bit of Joe Rodon, Dan James, and Paduism in there. A penny for the Leeds players' thoughts on what they would do. I'm sure every single Leeds United player would change him around right now. If he does it again, and especially if there's another mistake in there, he's literally, Farke is, he's basically on a one-way road to getting sacked, in my opinion, because if it then happens again, and he sticks by him, which he showed form for this season, Daniel Farke will not get promoted with one of the best sides the Championship has ever seen after being top for the majority of it. He's got to really, really, really think about this game week. It's huge for Leeds United, this. I think this is probably the most important period of our season. We've got to recuperate. We've had an absolute body blow at the weekend where, by the way, Swans were the better side. Watched it again. I watched it back today. They were cutting through us. The passing lanes were brilliant. They were crisp. They were better on the ball. They were much better than us. And
that's a reality. And can I just say as well,
Oscar, they should have scored a couple in the first half. Let's be honest, they missed an absolute sitter with that header. Andy saved a penalty. There has to be some unbelievable management right now. But the thing is, and the difference with last year is there was fans saying, look, he didn't have the players, first year down, a lot of young players, this, that, and the other. Archie, the players on the bench, Rutter, Somerville, Nonto, he was a year younger, etc. Joseph hadn't had any minutes. Gelhart, I've mentioned Gelhart and Cresswell, and McKinstry was there as well. Loads of young players in that side. And it was the first season, a lot of tumultuous season in terms of getting players out at the start and bringing players in. Fine, that was an excuse. We got the 90-point trophy. He has to get this team promoted this season. That is the MO. And I think the only way he can at least get Leeds fans to at least go, well done, Daniel, now, even though we're saying it with gritted teeth because it should have been done before, is to get rid of the goalkeeper and to get rid of Brendan Aronson. And I think if he makes those two moves in particular, gets Firpo back in at left back, gets, figure out your double pivot, because we don't know what Ampadu's going to be like. We don't know how he's going to fare. But even if he came out with Ramazani, made a fair few changes there, we'd all say it with gritted teeth again, because I feel he's doing this too late, even though we are in the top two, there's context. He's helping himself out there, mate.
Yeah, and I think that is the way you look at it at this moment in time. Yeah, we've got to it's almost like we've got to reboot it a little bit, these last sort of 7 games of the season. I agree with you. I think these next 2 or 3 games are critical. They will define the season. I think it's a long way back. Even if the other results go in our favour, if we start dropping points again, these next couple of games, bad ones, say if we went to Luton and didn't win, I think it's going to be season defining, really, in terms of finishing in the top 2. But yeah, I think you look at obviously the Melee situation. If I was just saying, it's the Swansea game, obviously all the focus is naturally Melié's cost us 2 goals. I'm not going to doubt that for 1 minute. But we weren't good enough in the game. Let's not act like everything was rosy before that. It wasn't rosy at all. It really, really wasn't. For me, listen, Meslier has to take responsibility for those mistakes. They've cost us the game. I'm not questioning that for 1 minute. But the idea that if we put Darlow in, all of a sudden all our issues are solved, I disagree with that. I really do. I just think fundamentally it's a team that looks tired. It's a team that looks like it needs some new faces in there, some new voices in there on the pitch, and just a refresh. We've done it before this season. Going into the second half of the season after Hull, we responded well to that, to be fair. And if we respond like we did to the Hull game, then we'll go up. We will get promoted. But again, that's a tall order. That is a very, very tall order to do that.
I think that's a really good point, Oscar. I think it's not just about the Elan Meslier thing here, but
it's not at all.
But I think there's context with the Elan Meslier thing. I think it's the crowd thing. I think if he starts Meslier again and he makes a mistake again, he shanks a ball out of play. He's basically, as I keep saying, he's making a problem for himself, which is already there anyway with
Farke, absolutely
goalkeeper consistently.
Luton away as well. Luton Borough away, the crowd will get on Meslier within the first 10 minutes, like they did at Sheffield United.
But we know as well. I mean, we had Brownie on last night, and I have to say, I disagreed with him on the show. Football's subjective, but Isaac Schmidt's just gone away and played 68 minutes with Switzerland. I've mentioned this before. The Swiss manager came out and basically said he was extremely surprised and happy by his level. He was winning his individual duels. He was technically efficient. Said that he was very good in the game. I would think that with, a player who's, I've mentioned this several times on the channel, but looks a lot more athletic than Sam Byram, is better on that left side, in my opinion, from the narrow bits I've seen from Isaac Schmidt on that left side. Looks more comfortable running with the ball at his feet. Looks like just ultimately a better dribbler. I was really surprised that then he'd go more defensive against Swansea.
Yeah, I agree.
Go with Sam Byram on the left-hand side, who is literally good for off-the-ball running. That's what Byram's really good at on the left-hand side. Wherever on the pitch, he's excellent for inverting off the ball movement to give Leeds another option. What he's not good at is making play wide, hugging the touchline, being able to use that left foot, being able to overlap on the outside and cross the ball in with his left foot. He cannot do it. So effectively, there was so many points in that game where we can talk about the players, we can talk about this, that, and the other, mate, but the manager bottled it. He bottled big decisions, and he made bad decisions at the weekend, which cost Leeds. We talk about James, we can talk about Solomon, look knackered, Aronson, who's out of form right now, but then you can also look at the back line with that's what I mean, the bizarre choice of Byram at left back, and you look at that midfield and Ampadu starting, he looked dead on his feet. He looked like he couldn't move. Lewis O'Brien was running rings around him. It was bizarre, mate. So you are right though. The context applied is
what I'd say is
it's got to be a refresh. You're right.
But with that is if the only change we make on Saturday is Carl Darlow, we will still struggle on Saturday. And that's the point I'm making. It has to be 3 or 4 changes. It has to be a big statement for me on Saturday with that starting 11. That will set the tone for the game at Luton. And I really do believe if we put in Nonto, wherever you want to play Nonto, if it's in the 10, if it's on the right-hand side, if you put in Ramazani on the left, if you put in Tanaka from the off, and then obviously work it out between Rothwell and Ampadu, whoever's in the better level of fitness. I'd imagine probably Rothwell for this game and Ampadu for Borough, if I was guessing. I think you probably want Ampadu looking after Finn and Zaz in that Borough game. I certainly don't think you can play Ampadu in both games, because I think that is asking for problems later in the season. If you start suddenly saying to Ampadu, you've got to play 270 minutes in 3 games in a week after you've just come back off injury, off the back of another injury, you're asking for problems. And for me, Daniel Farke deserves a lot of criticism if he's going to try and do that with Ethan Ampadu. Now, do we think he'll do that or not? I'd be very surprised if he did that. But in the fullback areas, Isaac Schmidt, Switzerland are a team that always make it into the knockout rounds of tournaments. It's not a rubbish international footballing nation. This Switzerland is a solid team, top 20, top 25 every single year.
I couldn't believe he got. I couldn't believe he got in. I couldn't believe with.
I was surprised as well.
For 25 minutes championship playing time, where he's 3rd on Daniel Farke's list, in any position, by the way, left or right back, I was stunned. I couldn't believe they got it. But by all accounts, Swiss press saying it as well, he had a really good game.
Exactly, and to be honest, if you look at these players, in terms of even just looking beyond this season, it's going to be tough in the summer in terms of Schmidt and Ramazani convincing him to stay at this moment in time. If we're being totally honest, if we're being totally honest in our situation, whatever league we're in, it's going to be a tough order, that.
Definitely.
But yeah, I mean, it's just amazing to me that Byram. Listen, I like Sam Byram. I'm actually probably one of Sam Byram's bigger fans, in terms of in the Leeds content space. But having said that, in a game like that, home to Swansea, Schmidt has got to be starting that game to try and revitalise that left-hand side with Solomon. It had to be Schmidt for me. If Ferper wasn't fully fit, that had to be what we tried. And for me as well, you look at it, the attack at this moment in time, the only player who's actually performing at this moment in time, and has performed the last 4 or 5 games, Junior Firpo's performed, to be fair, but he's kind of been in and out of the team with this injury, it's been Jayden Bogle. It's our fullbacks. Our fullbacks are by far our biggest offensive threat. And listen, they're both brilliant going forwards.
I didn't think
it's not just they're our biggest offensive threat. They're our only offensive threat.
Yeah,
they're our only offensive threat. Without Nonto, without Ramazani on the pitch, there are only creative options at this moment in time, which is ridiculous when you consider we play a 4-2-3-1. You've got a front 4 there. You've got a 3 behind the main striker. So many different options that.
So would you be tempted for this one? So talk me through your lineup. And everybody in the chat, Oscar, let me do a bit of housekeeping, everybody. We have got 200 people who are liking the video. We've got 670 of you in the chat, guys, on YouTube. We've got across platforms, we've got 1,200 of you in here. If you are on Twitter, you are on Facebook, make sure you head on over. Another thing as well, we have a football prizes giveaway. Make sure you get involved, 39p, or your legendary memorabilia and all this sort of stuff. Lovely little raffle. Get involved, everybody. Well worth it. But what I will say as well, get those likes up. I can see it's going to 212 now. Good one, everybody. It means basically it helps the videos being ranked. If you don't do that, the video basically I got an email from YouTube anyway saying if they're not liking the videos, there's a problem there. Basically, it hurts your algorithm. So do us a favor. That's why I'm asking for it now, and it's absolutely free. Continue, Oscar. Cheers, mate.
Okay, right. So, assuming everyone's fully fit, who is realistically going to be fully fit, so the likes of Firpo, likes of Ampadu, etc., I would go as follows. Carl Darlow in goal, Jayden Bogle at right back, Rodon Strauch, as usual, at centre-backs, left-back Junior Firpo. Midfield, maybe where it starts to get a little bit contentious, I would go Rothwell Tanaka, okay?
You start Tanaka after that?
I'd still start Tanaka, no question about it. I think Tanaka, listen, I know we had a terrible, terrible, terrible game against Swansea. I'm not going to doubt that for 1 minute.
He's been poor for a while.
I think he has, but for me, I was looking at Ampadu's performance. Ampadu, for me, not just going into this game, I just think the fact we've got a 3-game week,
Yeah.
Ampadu's got to start at Borough for me. That is an absolute non-negotiable. Ampadu's got to start at Borough and be man-marking Finazaz. That is a clear one for me. Or Morgan Whittaker, whoever plays in that 10 for Borough on that particular day, it's going to be their most dangerous player because that's the way Borough naturally play through the 10. Normally is Finazaz, so he has to start that game. You have to sort of think about that as well. And I think that's something with Daniel Farke's team selections is that there's got to be an eye on the games coming up as well. The fact we have got games coming thick and fast. So I would still go to Naka and Rothwell. I think they've done enough over the season to really still justify that faith.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree Tanaka's form's not been great, but I'm not seeing enough from Gruev or Ampadu to say, maybe less so Ampadu, but I'm not seeing enough from Gruev to say, yes, Gruev can go in. It's Luton away as well, by the way.
Imagine through that central space, right? Interchanging. I mean, there is a conversation right now where you can interchange. You can have Solomon, which is what we've all wanted, guys. If you are to keep him in, and let's say to put James out just for a period, and it's maybe to be a little bit more of an inversion instead of it just being out and out dynamism all on the wings, and they can interchange. I know it didn't work against Harrogate, Oscar, but when we just had that 3 in behind the striker, I know it wasn't great against Harrogate. Look, I'm going to say it again. I know it wasn't great against Harrogate, but I did love the movement. I did love the little relationships that they were just building throughout that game. And I thought that's something to build on. We didn't build on that. And obviously the context is Dan James and Solomon have been brilliant. But when you were playing Ramazani, Solomon, and Nonto, and imagine just Tanaka behind and maybe Rothwell. Obviously, there's no defending there whatsoever. Maybe that's going to be the conversation in terms of just having that defensive discipline in there. But what I will say is Ramazani, when he was playing, had the most ball recoveries in the attacking third in the division. Ramazani is actually very, very good at defending when he's given time. I think Nonto is drastically improved this season in terms of maybe just effort, endeavour, those questions that were posed at him last season. And I think right now he's the only player to even cause damage for Leeds United. And then by inverting a lot as well, and by these 3 players just being absolutely menacing just in that central space, you've then got the overlaps. You've then got the 100-metre sprinters and the quality as well at this level of Firpo and Bogle. So there is a way around this. We didn't have this last season. We didn't have the quality off the bench. And this is why I think all of the Leeds United fans, well, the majority, we had about 60% saying Farke out there. And I'm not there yet, obviously. And I know a lot of you are going to hate that. But what I will say is there are so many options that we have on the bench right now. There's so many ways he can change it around. Oscar's mentioned Gruev. He could do that if he wanted. I wouldn't do that, but he can. I
would at Luton away. I would not do. I would not do Gruev.
He can bring in Schmidt. He can bring in Ramazan. He can bring in Nonto. He can bring in Joseph. He can go to a front 2. He can go to a front 2 if he wants. He can put Perot in the 10. He can put Joseph further forward as the spearhead. That's something a bit different. People might not rate Joseph, but it is still something a bit different. It's still a spearhead. It's someone as that focal point, that number 9, which means that Peru can play off Joseph. We all know Peru's better in the bloody number 10 anyway when Joseph's on it in phases, in my opinion. So there's ways around this. This is why the fan base, for me, are annoyed at the minute, because with the plethora of options, with the squad that we have, we should not be struggling right now. And for me, that just, it stinks of mismanagement. But Oscar, let me just get into a couple of comments as well. People have been waiting a bit. Mike says, I think he's been told to play these players and he's, housing it by putting them on last minute. Logan says, at this moment of time, we need to be better than Sheffield and Burnley. Hi, Telly. Telly's back in the building. Mate, Gladbach finished 1 point above the relegation, sack Farke. My German mates said, great bloke, too inflexible. This season, they hired Iriola type coach and they are 2 points off the Champions League. John says, I love you two, but come on. Why is the majority of the team that is picked to start playing poor? As fans, we're drowning here, and all you are doing is offering us water. Sorry, John. It's I don't have the answers, mate. Unfortunately, I'm not a manager. Mike says, "Hey, Conor and Oscar, if Leeds had come 2-1 down, score a last-minute equaliser, would you still be as annoyed as you are?"
Yeah. I would actually.
Yeah, I think there's context to that, Mike. If you're 2-1 down and he's scoring an equaliser, look, there's the euphoria. We wouldn't be probably as lulled as we are at the end of the game. But
we both just said about Meslier in terms of, obviously, if you take Mellier's mistakes out of it and say we arguably squeezed out a 2-0 win out of that game, I'd still be saying, not quite to the same extent, but I would not have been happy with what we did on Saturday at all. I'd be saying it's looking very unconvincing at this moment in time. It's looking like that QPR, Portsmouth away, West Brom at home game wasn't a flash in the pan. We really aren't at it at this moment in time. And listen, we could go to Luton and win We've still then got to follow up with something at Borough. There's no question about that at all. That won't get us out of the woods, by the way, winning at Luton. No. But if we just finish off the front four, just very quickly, I would agree with you. I'd go Nonto on the right. I would go Ramazani on the left. And then in the 10, I'm kind of debating a little bit. I'd probably go Solomon in the 10.
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
Maybe, yeah, I'd go Solomon, I think. And Perot top, I would go. That is the team I'd go with. And essentially, I think it can work. And listen, I won't pick a team that I don't think can work, but I just think with Bogle and Firpo overlapping, bringing Ramazani and Nonto further inside, they link up with Solomon. He links up with Perot. You've got then a very fluid front four. Both fullbacks holding the width. Midfield quite well balanced. And yeah, I'm pretty confident on that team. But I don't think it'll be anything like that team on Saturday, to be honest. I don't think it'll be anything like that.
And this is where the frustration builds. It just builds when we all know what's going to happen, and that's where it's just so frustrating for me. I think
the problem as well you've got is if Darlow does go in for Melier,
you won't see Darlow, and you're going to see, for me,
I don't think you will.
You're going to see Nonto. You're going to see Nonto in the 10, and that'll be it.
I think that'd be a boost at least seeing Nonto in the team. But I think Dan James needs a rest like you would not believe, especially for that Borough game. How important is Dan James going to be for that Borough game in terms of getting in behind Borough? They play a high line. That's how you get at Borough on the counter-attack. Is how we got at them last season. You've got to have Dan James fit. You've got to have Ampadu fit to win the 50-50s, to start and launch the transitions. We have to have that. So I think it is very much horses for courses. I really do believe at this stage of the season. And for me, that is the team I really do believe in. But if you do start Darlow, the issue you've got is if Darlow makes a mistake, and let's be honest, Carl Darlow is not a great goalkeeper either at this level. I don't believe he is. I think he's better than Melier. I think he's solid at the very least. But I don't think he's a Michael Cooper or James Trafford by any sense of the imagination. If Carl Darlow makes a mistake on Saturday, you've then got a situation where Farke straight away has got an excuse to put Melier back in, and then Melier's head will not be fully at it because he's just being dropped. Darlow's head won't be at it because he's just being dropped. You create a situation for yourself when you let it build to this extent where for me, your manager has always got to be proactive. In terms of this drop-off from James and Solomon should have been anticipated really weeks ago. And now we've waited until it's got to a point where it's almost untenable with certain players in this team. It's not great. It's not great at all.
Yeah, John says 285 likes, hit that button. Conor deserves that a sport, as does Oscar, of course. Great channel. Thanks, mate. Really appreciate that. But I mean, I completely agree with that. I don't think there's anything controversial that you've just said, but it's the difference that we can have, and that's where he's got to look at it now, and he's got to really sit down with his team, and he's got to think about his future as well. He's got to think about his future. He's got to think about the team's future. This is gargantuan. This is a huge period for this club. It is massive. And I don't want to make this into some sort of scaremongering tactic. It's nothing like that. Of course, it's not a tactic. It's just my opinion. We're speaking back with a couple of people today, and I feel if they don't go up today, or if they go into the playoffs, and it seemed, I don't know if anybody in the chat as well kind of got the rhetoric from what Farke was saying. He was kind of skirting around the playoffs, which was quite interesting in his rhetoric and the post-match press conference. He kind of mentioned we will go up 100%. And then he kind of mentioned as well, it was something like by any means, which kind of obviously instigates that it may be by the playoffs as well. If he's relying on that, then I am seriously worried, to be quite honest with you. And if he thinks that is one of the avenues, which we all know it is, I mean, theoretically it is an avenue. Theoretically, we shouldn't be bothered because we have the best team. But let's not forget we have form teams going in there, and Sunderland will be in there again, which has been two extremely tricky games for the club. So no, we don't want to go down that route again and feel that pinch again. So let's just do the job at hand, which was us being in the top two for the majority of the season and getting up in the top two. Let's keep Burnley in the playoffs, which they can win. And for me, there's got to be changes. There's got to be proactiveness from this gaffer. And if he does it, we'll all herald him. If he gets Leeds United up in the top two, we're all going to be absolutely praising Daniel Farke, as we have been doing all season. And there's a lot of you who are saying, Conor, why are you not Farke out? Why are you not Farke out? Well, I have to say, I always feel I've held him to account on this channel. We've always been very upfront here, me and Oscar, especially on the debrief, but we try bring a bit of a mix as well to the channel with people who maybe see it the other way as well, like you will see on the channel. But what I will say is I've always said I'll judge Daniel Farke at the end of the season. And if he doesn't get Leeds United promoted, he needs sacking on the spot. And I don't think, I always say this as well, it's not just black and white. I think there's grey in here as well. I do like a lot of things Farke has brought to his side. I think he's improved certain personnel. But I also think that certain players have regressed under him. I think his man management's been poor as well. So the grey area is where I'm kind of in right now. If he gets Leeds promoted in the top two, I would have my concerns. I really would have my concerns going up with Daniel Farke, and I think he's showing some of his weakness right now. But what I would say is there's another part of me that if we were, by some undivine way now, because I am kind of on the other side of it right now, even though I'm trying to be positive, speaking it into existence, we get up there. He is putting some very negative thoughts in my head when it comes to his adaptability, because there seems to be with Daniel Farke this continuation of mistakes and a consistency of the same patterns. Mönchengladbach and Norwich being case in point for that, and Leeds United at points last season as well for certain things. So yeah, monologue aside, I think it's very easy now to just say Farke. I understand people saying it, but for me, I am going to sit on that fence. I'm going to be Geneva until the end of the season. And if we do not get up at the end of the season, I'll be the first one coming on here and saying he needs to get sacked on the spot. But if he does get promoted, which he could still do, and we are still in the top two, then he's done his MO, he's done his job, and we can assess whatever the outcome of his future is going to be in the summer.
Yeah, and I think what I'd say is I think Daniel Farke is a far better coach than Chris Wilder and Scott Parker. I wouldn't question that for 1 minute. Coaching-wise, tactically, coaching, different bits and pieces, he's better in terms of as a pure coach from that point of view than Chris Wilder and Scott Parker. And probably I'd say, yeah, he's arguably one of the best coaches in the league, if not the best coach in the league in that kind of sense. When it comes to man management and the other side of things, that's what's kind of bringing Scott Parker and Chris Wilder back into it. For me, it does feel as simple as that in terms of when you compare the three, in terms of the way we play.
Wilder's brilliant at this stage, isn't he?
Yeah, that is what Chris Wilder makes a difference with. Scott Parker, to be fair, is pretty good at that as well in terms of, he's got experience at this stage of the season. It's not great to watch, don't get me wrong. If you took Marcus Edwards, I still think if Marcus Edwards got an injury, Burnley would go straight back to doing what they were doing before he arrived. They are so reliant on him. It's untrue. But to be fair, give credit where it's due. They saw the signing. It was there to be made. They made the signing. Credit to Burnley. But I still believe we play better football than those two. I do believe that. I think our ceiling's far, far higher than those two. They will still drop points at stages of the season. They've still got each other to play, of course. But if we don't rotate, if we don't freshen things up and heed the warnings, because we are still top two at this moment in time, but if we don't heed the warnings, this will only go one way. This will go the exact same way as last season for me.
Well, I think if there's a lack of rotation, this is sort of my wild card prediction right now. I think if he kind of sticks with it, with just the rigidity that we've seen so far, I think this could be done within the next 2 or 3 games.
It could be if we drop the ball.
That's what I think. It's not. I think if he doesn't freshen it up, it's going to be done within 2 or 3 games. It's not. I don't think they're going to win every single game till the end of the season. But what I will say is, I think you look at their 2 games coming up. Burnley, just for context, Oscar, Burnley haven't lost a game in 26. They've lost about 4. They've lost about. The stat is it's something like they've not. I think they've lost 4 games in something like 50 or 60 odd games. So they're keeping on with the trends. Sheffield United are keeping on with the trends. We're the only ones right now booking the trends in terms of that lowerly form. So we right now are in second spot. It's in our hands. We have won 1 game in 5 and we're still in the top 2. Now, the context behind that is we were effectively 8 points clear of Burnley 5 games ago. Let me just say that again. We were 8 points clear of Burnley 5 games ago, which is staggering when you think about it. 5 points ahead of Sheffield United, plus the goal difference. Obviously, it was 7 and goal difference with Burnley, and that's why I said 8. But the context right now is, his job's on the line. Farke's job's on the line. Choppy waters at Leeds United in the summer. That is all on the line as well. if he doesn't rotate right now, Oscar, if he doesn't rotate right now and have some serious conversations, and I hope, by the way, some of the players have had some serious conversations with the manager and with their peers as well.
Yeah.
If he doesn't do it within the next 2 or 3 games, or if it's the same thing, I think we'll be done in the next 2 or 3 games. I think they'll just keep picking up, even if it's 3-4 points out of 6. I think they'll end up doing that, and you'll just see Leeds start dipping and dipping and dipping away, and that's kind of where my worry is. So right now, yes, I am quite pessimistic because of what I've seen and the drop off of my side from where we were, and I think Oscar's the same. I think Jer's the same. I think Gabe's the same. I think many of the content creators are the same. And the manager has to be a manager of a top side and change it around and earn that dollar. This is a big moment for Leeds United, in my opinion.
Absolutely, no question about it. And I think Burnley, Sheffield United, is that the third to last game of the season? I think it is. That match day 44.
Well, it's second, isn't it? It's 44. 46,
yeah, sorry, yeah. But the way you got to look at it there is, if we're like, say, 3 or 4 points back by that point, that is just us shooting ourselves in the foot. We've got to really put the pressure on between now and then one of those teams will drop points, and that is our opportunity to get back at these teams. And obviously, we're still in front of Burnley. I'm not questioning that for 1 minute. That is a fact. But the run from now till then is going to be very, very key. There's no question about that at all. And it is actually quite a favourable run. If you look at it on paper for us, it's quite a favourable run. There's no question about it. If you get through the Borough game, it should be a very favourable run. I think, in terms of the games that we totally expect to win, the games that we have won this season, in the reverse fixtures. In fact, have we won all? I think. Oh no, apart from Bristol City, I think we've won every single game in the reverse fixture. So I think if you took the fixtures from the first half of the season, I think we won 6 out of the 7 and drew the other 1. So we know we can do it. We know in this team we've got the ability to win these games of football. Even with this run of games. But how many times have we been it? It's the same as last season, isn't it? We had this easy run of fixtures towards the end of last season. We had this little wobble at this point in the season. It wasn't too much panic at that point, but it just feels like the same thing. Exact same times as well of the season.
Yeah.
Oh, man. How has this happened again?
It's tough.
How has it happened again? Honestly, it's just when you look at it and you think, we were ahead at this point. Last season, we were having to do ridiculous things just to get back into the top.
Can I just say something as well? And we were a wonderful side, and it's not to take anything away. That Bielsa side that got promoted after Huddersfield, which was, I believe, the last game, and I was there for the Ailing volley. It was then behind closed doors, the final furlong.
Yeah, that's true.
And we started in the Premier League that first year, I believe, for the full season, apart from at the end where patches of people were allowed in the West Bromwich Albion game, which won 3-1, obviously the Calvin Phillips free kick. It's not to take that much away because we were solely focused on the football in that period, but it was behind closed doors. I said this to my old man.
Marcelo Bielsa's team was far, far away tactically in every single sense that this Daniel Farke team will ever be. If we're being
no, yeah, but it was a pure.
But it is true in terms of the mentality side of things. Yeah.
That's what it is, Oscar. The purest side of it is we're an excellent footballing team. We're a really good footballing team now. For the majority of the season, it's been excellent. But that Bielsa period, it was amazing because as much as there's trends here. There's trends, and I don't want to be superstitious, and I don't want to look at it, but it seems
like the team still would have had insane success, even if there was no COVID or no behind closed doors. It still would have had insane success, even with fans in the ground. I do believe.
Yeah. I think it'd just be interesting to have seen.
Yeah. There's certain games all the time.
By the way, the context, I know it's going to be taken out of context now, Oscar. The context of that is not saying that Leeds United wouldn't have had the period that they had. The context is that mentality-wise, we seem to get to this point in the season in front of crowds, and we seem to struggle mentally. And it seems to be a theme with Leeds United over the past however many years. I'm just noticing it as a point that we were behind
Yeah, I mean, you look at it. Suddenly the ball.
Would Bamford, the confidence player, would he have got 17 goals with packed out Emirates, packed out Spurs, packed out Villa? Would it have happened? I don't know.
There's different things. Yeah, we might have gained in certain games that season as well. Say that Arsenal at home game, the 0-0. I think if fans were in the ground that day, I think we probably would have got that one over the line and won that game.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
There's other games, there's over the season where we probably would have seen it through. I think the Man City game at home, the 1-1, I think we probably would have won that with fans in the ground. I think City would have gone into a panic. But if you look at it overall, though, the bigger picture of things.
So this was just the goal, and obviously
this Leeds team fundamentally, when the passes are a little bit underhit, a little bit overhit by a yard, we do start to panic. We're seeing it consistently with this Leeds team, and it is a worry. Can we see it through in the biggest moments on the biggest occasion? And that is where the players have to answer the question. That's why Ramazani coming into the team, who has no previous of this. Nonto, who's one of our best players at the back end of last season, if you think back to his game against Norwich and his game against Middlesbrough away. It's just the buzz they give us. This Leeds team is just, for me, it's unthinkable.
But it's if we just have a look at this, and I don't want to take. I mean, by the way, this was I know Oscar, you're a big fan of your stats. This shot by the Potnik here was a 0.03 XG chance. So obviously that going in, we don't need to see that again. But I think the reactions of the players is interesting. You just see Firpo going off by himself. It looks like Leeds have scored. Look at him going to the south stand. Rodon does a Rodon thing. But just if you look down here, just have a look on the second screen here, and I'll just drag it back a little bit. Look at Willie Nyonto. So there's just a second screen below. He goes absolutely mental. Look at him down there. Completely lost the plot.
But I think what I'd say is I don't really mind that as well.
No,
I like the fact the players are angry.
No, that's that. You are bang on. That's the whole point. I think it shows, because I mean, there's a lot of people talking about Willie Nyonto at some stage saying that he doesn't care. But it shows.
Yeah.
It shows
he doesn't care, and he was wanting to fight everyone away at Sunderland. If you remember when that.
And I hope it happens. There was a famous Wilder thing. Back in, I don't know if you remember this, 1819. Sheffield United went 3-0 up against Villa.
Yeah.
And then I think it was a Billy Sharp hat trick. Villa came back into it, and it 3-3 last minute. The story tells it. Chris Wilder went back in and basically, effectively locked them all in a room. Went out, he did his own thing, and apparently there was players getting walled, players getting punched. It was flying. Some players came out with black eyes, all this sort of stuff. I hope that there was some Leeds players in there, and I hope there's been a 2-day break, Oscar, because there's been some black eyes. There's been some words said. And I really hope they've gone in. And by the way, on the back of that, Sheffield United went on about, I think it was a 10 to 12 to 13 unbeaten run. They were unbelievable.
Villa scored, I think, 3 in the last 5 minutes in that game. I'm pretty sure it was something insane like that, I think.
Yeah, but I'm just hoping they went in, had some choice words, probably, threw a few hands. I'm not advocating that, but I think it needed it at the weekend. And I'm hoping that they got it sorted out.
We don't need any more injuries, Conor.
Yeah. I can't imagine they're going to be horrible punches, but you know what I mean. But yeah, I'll tell you what, guys, let's leave it there. Anyway, let us know what's going on in the chat. As I've said, just make sure you're slapping a like on the video, everybody. I told you earlier why we need to do that. Make sure you check out Football Prize, link below. We do have 2 sponsors coming on board in the next week as well, which I'm really excited to get you guys involved in. All Leeds fans as well, which is going to be great. Make sure, as I say, you're slapping a like on the video. Thanks for your continued engagement. Oscar and me will be back next week with another endorsement, hopefully in better situation of the debrief. Guys, it's been an absolute pleasure, and we will see you on the other side. Let's go.